prophecy, the secret of success isn't just to visualize. You must articulate. You must think, speak, and do. And by doing that, you will be on your way to actualizing your dreams and your visions. In the case of Joseph, Joseph knew that he had to articulate the dream. Because you see, by nature, there was no way that Joseph could become the leader of his brothers. They hated him. He knew that. So there was no way in direct connection that he could become their leader. But by saying and stating the dream, which is something that he knew had to happen, not for his sake, but for their sake, that caused the chain of events that he got sold into slavery to a society which could exercise its influence over the whole world, and through which he would eventually be able to exercise his influence over his family as well. He had to find a way to get to Egypt. And in getting to Egypt, he had to find a way to connect with people in power. And by connecting with people in power, he had to find a way to get to Pharaoh. All of these things were impossible under the rules of engagement of the ancient world. There's no way that a Canaanite or a Hebrew could get an audience with the pharaohs, much less become his official. It was against their protocol. The Hebrews were hated. The Canaanites were hated. The Egyptians considered themselves the elite of the world, the master race, if you will. How is it possible that Joseph would become the leader of the greatest empire of that day? And it is clear from the evidence that indeed the author who wrote the Torah knew very, very intimately the ways of the Egyptians. And in fact, every detail of Joseph's ascent is actually part of the process that happened in those days. And therefore we have every, not only reason, we know that the Torah is true, but we have every evidence, every element of ancient Egyptian protocol, parallels everything that is found in this week's Torah portion. And there was no way in God's world that Joseph could have become the leader had he not articulated his dream. The articulation set off a chain of events that appeared at first to negate the dream, but actually brought the dream into fruition. Because by getting his brothers angry, that caused that Joseph would be taken to a different place, which ultimately led to his ascent. And so we see the chain of events, how God has prepared this world in an unlikely fashion. Sometimes you ask yourself, what the heck am I doing here? Why did I deserve this? What did I do with my life, with all my potential? And the answer is, the decisions you made was because God had a purpose for you being in a certain place at a certain time for certain people. And no matter what you would have done, you would have wound up in the same place, the same time, with the same people anyway. Maybe with different clothing, maybe with a different role, but you would have had the same thing to accomplish. And that's the wonder of God's providence, how God has anticipated all of our actions. And for every action, there's a compensatory reaction, which leads us to the will of God, what God has intended for our lives. And the purpose of our lives is to create a better world, to create tikkun olam. Tikkun olam does not mean a liberal agenda. Tikkun olam means making the world indeed a place of kindness and compassion, a place where God would be proud to rest, where God would be proud to live amongst the peoples. Remember, wherever you go, That is your mission, to make the place a place that's loving, compassionate, and where God would be proud to live. And if you do that,